Hey friends, if you like the Nexus Podcast, the best way to continue the learning is to join our community. There are 3 ways to do that. First, you can join the Nexus Pro membership. It's our global community of smart building professionals. We have monthly events, paywall deep dive content, and a private chat room, and it's just $35 a month. Second, you can upgrade from the Pro membership to our courses offering. It's headlined by our flagship course, The Smart Building Strategist, and we're building a catalog of courses taught by world-leading experts on each topic under the Smart Buildings umbrella. Third, and finally, our marketplace is how we connect leading vendors with buyers looking for their solutions. The links are below in the show notes, and now let's go on to the podcast. All right, welcome back to the Nexus Podcast. It's James. I have some friends here and a special guest. We're going to walk through what's going on in the Nexus Labs community while you're friends and a guest. Those are mutually exclusive groups.
Wow.
We're going to walk through what's going on in the Nexus Labs community while you can, walk your dog or commute or whatever. If you want the full experience, this is just a preview. The best way to get the full experience is to go over to the Nexus newsletter, where we have every piece of content and invites to all of our events. Let's start with at the Nexus, what's going on in the Nexus Labs community. I'll start. We are sending out invites to what we're calling NexusCon Supervisory Control, which is a fun take on a technology category, but it's basically a group of building owners that are going to be reviewing the agenda and design of the conference and making sure it matches their day-to-day lives, essentially. So it's a check on us of what we think is cool. They're going to be coming in and saying, now this is actually what we should be talking about at the conference this year. So it's grounded in, real world stuff that building owners are thinking about and wondering about, and problems they need to solve. So that's an addition to the conference process this year that we're working on right now. And so invites to that have already been sent out, and we should be putting that group together real soon. So that'll be fun. Brad, what do you got?
Yeah, so we had some marketplace success stories this week, which is pretty cool. So if you're not aware, the Nexus Marketplace is this platform that we give access to building owners to help them find the service providers or technology solutions they need to do the work that they're trying to do. This week, we've had 4 requests come in where a consultant or a building owner has been browsing through the marketplace, found a vendor that they're interested in, and said, hey, I need an introduction to this vendor because I need them for my situation that I'm in. So then that goes to us and we facilitate. We say, we go to that technology vendor, service provider, say, hey, someone's really interested in your product. This is why. Here's who they are. You guys talk, make a deal happen. So it's just cool to see it go kind of full circle and complete exactly what it was supposed to do, is bring those 2 groups together.
That's awesome. I'll say, without saying names, we had a huge company shut down one of their divisions and then come to the marketplace to find a new option because they shut down that division, a new option, and a startup is who they, ended up connecting with, which is a cool, progression to see. Rosie, what about you? What's going on?
I've been in NexusCon land, and specifically around who's coming, getting people registered. People need to keep moving it along in terms of registration. So that's what I've been up to. And it's been really fun. I've been talking to a lot of people that came last year, and that's obviously the people that are most excited and ready to come again, which is awesome. And we are asking them for referrals. So my ask to the community, even though that's not what this is if you came last year and had a great time, we would love if you brought a friend or told a few people about it, and we can help facilitate that with you. So feel free to reach out.
That's great. All right, time to bring in our friend and guest. It's not mutually exclusive. We have Andrew Rodgers here, co-founder of ACE IoT. Andrew, what's going on in your world right now, briefly?
Oh, man. Honestly, a lot of vibe coding. I
Are you fucking with us?
No, I really got on this train. I would say the agentic AI workflows in the last 60 to 90 days have really shifted. it's still like definitely a place where if you're not someone who understands, like if you're not a software developer and you go down this pathway, you're going to hit a dead end pretty quick and it's going to get really frustrating. But if you are a software developer, you can just build stuff really fast. And so there were some things that, we have this new product that we're launching, Sentinel, that's all about, operational technology network monitoring and evaluation and validation. And there were these holes that we had found where like people in the organizations running these things don't have data models for some of the stuff. They don't have the network architecture defined. No one is able to like share between IT and OT, like the network metrics that matter for OT networks. And so over, I would say the last 2 weeks, I have just like, I don't know, a lot of hours, and it's addictive because you can like, you put this challenge into the AI, you get it to write some test, you get it to like implement the thing to fulfill the test, and then you have this thing that does something. It's really cool. And so I put out, I think, a LinkedIn post this weekend where I'd kind of like finally, after this fugue state of just spitting out stuff, like trying to put it into a thoughtful, hey, here's where I think the gaps are. Here's how these different components we've been working on maybe fill some of those gaps. And then that'll evolve into like products that are or features that are integrated into the Sentinel product. But yeah, it's kind of wild. It is definitely a different time in AI now than it was a year ago for this stuff.
For sure. That's great. You'll have to do some sort of demo to these three non-programmers, non-software.
I got follow-up questions that I'm holding, but
we'll hold those for later. People will probably be interested in they're listening to this too. All right, let's jump into what's going on in the community. We let's start with OT, IT OT, integrating, connecting, and securing devices. We produced a piece. I wrote the piece on. It's called a horizontal architecture with limited resources, 3 options in today's marketplace. So, Andrew, you and I connected about this when this was just a fragment of an idea. And so I think we wanted to have you come on to talk about it because you kind of helped me form like what's going on with this article. How does this come into a legitimate story? And so first, thank you for that. We kind of had a call and it was like, let's explore this together. But basically where we landed was the concept of a horizontal architecture. I'm looking up above my screen right now in my office, and it's 11 by 17 or maybe bigger than that poster on my wall. The horizontal architecture came about, we didn't make it up, right? It was just, we were interviewing people and just heard the theme over and over and over and over again and sort of said, okay, I'm hearing all of this. Here's what you all are saying. Let me try to put some sort of structure to what everyone's saying and have it be so we're all speaking from the same sheet of music, essentially. And that was 4 or 5 years ago, right? And so this piece that I wrote is about the options if you don't have an OT team, which most building owner organizations don't really have dedicated OT resources, or they have very few that don't have the resources to like spin up a tech stack, essentially. And so this piece is about basically the 3 options. One is the OEMs are coming out with options for closing that gap with, basically what we call unity from edge to cloud. There's a second option, which is OT infrastructure as a service. So if you're used to, as an IT team, buying these products as a service for different parts of the stack, you can now buy different OT pieces of your OT infrastructure as a service. And then we have fully managed solutions. And so let's go into the third category because that's what you guys do at ACE IoT. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what that means?
Yeah, and these concepts, like we've been tracking this for a while because obviously when we started all this, for us 6.5 years ago now, it was very lonely. There weren't, IDL wasn't really a term of art at that point. Horizontal architecture, I don't think you had published that stuff quite yet. And so we felt very alone, which is nice, and you feel like you're early to a market. But it also was like, well, if we're having to try to convince everybody to do this, this is really hard. So now, as we've, more and more folks have shown up to the market, with different offerings, kind of going to market different ways. Like, this is how we've been thinking about our potential competitors. Although I am still very adamant that like the only competition we have in this market is doing nothing. Like, there's so much room, so many buildings that need these solutions. And for a building owner to find which one of these three flavors that we're talking about fits, like, that's the most important thing. And by having all of these three options, what we're doing, and like this piece, like, I'm really excited about this piece you put out, because by like really clearly defining this, it's basically saying, look, you have, it doesn't matter what your condition of your organization is, like what level of resources you can bring to the table, you don't really have an excuse for not doing something to solve like the acute problems you're experiencing that you're going to solve on top of whatever this infrastructure is. So for us on this, fully managed, like the way we think about this is people need data. That's, for all kinds of things. Y'all talk about that better or more than anyone else. And a lot of times the existing value chain in the building is not very well oriented for data sharing, collection, So we go into a building, we deploy our platform, and we manage that platform and support it, including working through issues when it's hard to get vendor support or OT networks aren't working correctly. Like, we have that expertise on staff, so we're helping people solve those problems so the data keeps flowing for whatever that higher value use case is, whether it's AFDD, uh, you know, uh, reporting, whatever. Even supervisory control. We have clients that do supervisory control on top of our platform. So that's how we think about what we do is kind of different from some of the other platforms that are sort of just a platform, that where you need those OT resources or IT resources to step up and kind of learn one or the other enough to deploy and operate it for you. We're really focused on making it kind of turnkey for our customers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking about it, like you guys are kind of like you provide the tech, but then you also provide like a fractional OT staff,
That's right.
which is needed for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, our market that has been really good for us has been monitoring based commissioning, and those folks are really smart, really know the physics, they know the mechanical systems. They can like smell a poorly tuned PID loop from across the parking lot. But when it comes to getting network access set up, going through security review with IT, like they hate it. Like, it's like not a good use of their time. They're not good at it, and it just pisses everybody off. And so being able to kind of step in and help them deliver the kind of value they can deliver to the client, which is efficiency, reliability, like all of these things, they have all that knowledge, but they just need access to these systems in order to actually deliver it. And being able to augment them and help them deliver that is really rewarding, actually.
Anything to add, Rosie and Brad?
I just like the point that you made, Andrew, about like, or how you define yourself as, we talk about all these use cases for having a bunch of data and all those things that it unlocks. And you guys are like the bridge to be able to do that. Like, I'm picturing a building owner who sees all these great things that they could do with data, deploys, be it monitoring based commissioning or occupancy sensors for space utilization stuff that we're going to talk about later, or whatever. And then they're like, oh shit, like this is really hard to actually get all the information I need in one place to actually do what I expected to do. And that's the bridge that like you guys are able to put in there.
Or I get it done once, and then one of my controllers is end of life. I do a capital project to replace those because like we don't want the risk of them being on our network. And now all those integrations just disappeared, and I have to redo it. Like, all of that like ongoing stuff. It's not a, I say this all the time, that OT is not a cooling tower. You can't buy it, like hook it up to the water and walk away for 15 years and come back in 15 years and replace the fill, and in 30 years it's rusted out and you buy a new one, right? Like, that's not how OT works. You have to have some resource, and if that's not internal, it's going to be external. And if it's going to be external, you're either doing it one of two ways. You're either buying it by the hour, which is expensive, hard to plan for, hard to predict. And, one budget period is going to be, something happens and it's hugely expensive. The next budget period, there's no cost, but you just can't plan that stuff. Or you hire someone like us, which has more of this, I think, I like this fractional OT staff. We're going to take care of the stuff that's broken over the course of our deployment. Yeah, you're going to pay for it, but at least you know what you're paying for, and you know that someone's there to backstop your staff when things get over your head. It's not like, oh, we were going to do this thing, it was going to be really easy, it didn't work, now we're have to go through a procurement process to get an MSI to come in, and we don't even know what we're asking them. That's all that. I used to say a lot, this like mean meetings to integration. I think that's one of the things we're trying to drive down, right? Like if you've just got somebody that you can, it's on the hook, they're the phone you call. Like you don't have to like redo a new scope of work, or we try to keep that stuff as minimal as possible so that when you need the data you need, somebody's there to help you get it.
All right, time to move on. Our next piece is in the workplace experience beat. We had a piece that we wrote on the ROI of IoT. It's called "The Best Returns Come from Diving In, Not Dipping Your Toe in the Water." This has an interesting story that's in that piece around Manulife reducing food waste, which I thought was fascinating. We don't have a lot of food waste stories in our community, but basically they started counting the number of people in the office. This is very simple, actually, counting the number of people in the office, and then around like 10:30 a.m. when they would start cooking lunch, they just figured out how many people were there and then used that to like correlate the number of people that were there to the number of people that were actually going to show up to eat. And I think it's a very simple thing, but this piece walks through all these different business cases for people counting sensors. And I just thought this one was especially fascinating. Like, why wouldn't every single cafeteria be doing this? It takes a people counter on each door in your office, and if you're a tenant, right, whatever floors you have, right, and you can immediately have right size your food count and your food costs, and even like your like labor around your food as well. So fascinating piece. Anybody have anything to comment on that, or should we move on?
I will say quickly, it's such a quantifiable ROI use case for occupancy sensors, perhaps the most quantifiable I've ever seen. And it seems like the more we talk about space utilization, it's like every month there's some new use case that we hear about that's pretty cool. I compare this one a lot to the people using it for smart restrooms, like cleaning, you're planning your janitorial schedules around it. That one's great too. So love it.
Was this done on occupancy or on like access control data, or both?
This was done on people counting. They started with access control data, and I can't remember why they said that wasn't enough, but they basically determined that wasn't enough. And so all of their ROI calculations were on the sensors sort of on top of the base case, which is the data that they already had. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And
well, I just want to go on the sorry.
Go ahead.
I just want to go on the record, Andrew, that I'm against food waste. So this is great.
Yes.
We are, so are we. So we're aligned there.
Yes.
That's awesome.
All right. And next one, digitizing operations and maintenance. Brad, you have a little a nugget, for lack of a better term, to play
exactly.
for.
Pun intended. So tomorrow we're having our building owner meetup for technology adoption, what people are doing to help their technicians, their workplace adopt technology. This episode will come out after that, but it's going to be a great event. So anyway, I've been diving through, like trying to do a bunch of research on what we've heard from building owners about increasing technology adoption. And I stumbled across Devin Tracy at NexusCon talking about the Golden Nugget program at Lockheed Martin. So without further ado, I'm just going to play the clip and then we can discuss it.
And fixing what the faults we're detecting. And so one way that we continue to do this is hold the technician's hand, meet with them weekly, and my team is the first pass at the data. We build a list of what looks like a potential problem and share it with the technicians. Now, as you can imagine, and I'm sure you've experienced, most of the technicians were not excited about this. They're like, I don't want to see the thing. You're gonna, put me in the hot seat. I don't want people to know about that. And we tried to flip the script and we said, hey, we're gonna make you the hero because now you found this thing that nobody knew about. And we invented this term, there it is, called the golden nugget. And I actually have one here because we have to mail it out to one of our new sites. And this is something that the technicians actually now pass around to technicians who find a golden nugget and fix it. And it sounds kind of dorky, but it's stuck. And we actually have vice president level golden nugget targets.
The golden
I
nugget
love
at
that.
Lockheed. What do you guys think?
So cool.
That's so cool. What's funny is that she showed a slide there that they went and visited Google and then came back and did FDD. And I know from, just talking to those two groups is that actually Google's still learning from them. No, so there's like a little bit of a cycle of sharing between building owners, which is great. I just wanted to circle back real quick on what you said about the event. So by the time this gets published, the event will have been last week, and not all of our community will get an invite to that because we just started doing closed doors, building owner only. We invite a few vendors to talk just for 3 minutes each on what they're doing that's relevant to that month's topic. But just so everyone knows, those are building owner only. If you're a building owner and you want to share and talk to other building owners, that's what we created those for. It's kind of like an extension of what was called the Buyer Symposium at last year's NexusCon. And we'll be continuing that online and in person at this year's NexusCon.
It's cool because you imagine we didn't play that clip. What happens in these events is that Devin's sitting there with some other building owner who's like, we got FDD, but my technicians are struggling with it. And she says, oh, well, we did the golden nugget. And like, she introduces this idea. And those are the type of conversations we hear. And then I just want to say, like, we're going to talk about this a lot more throughout the year, but like gamifying all of these smart buildings tasks to do and just making it fun for the people involved, I think goes a really long way. We've heard other stories like this of if you make smart buildings fun, you increase adoption for sure.
That's
Totally.
great. That's great. Yeah, the Golden Nugget program is definitely a cool one. All right, let's move on. The last category we have here is energy management, building performance, and controls. Brad, you wrote a piece on this, so we'll talk about one of those areas from that piece.
Yeah. So we did talk about the cross-system energy management piece previously, but there's a couple of big pieces within that we didn't get to, and we wanted to introduce one of those concepts. So we titled the section of the piece "Taking the Energy Management Hands Off the Proverbial Steering Wheel." And it's this idea that there's all these energy management related tech tools out there that help elevate the job of an energy manager. But it requires some buy-in to elevate that energy manager. And one of the ways it requires buy-in is that they have to be comfortable taking their hands off the steering wheel and letting something else control portions of their building. I pulled a quote from Mark Chung, the CEO of Vertigris, who was talking about this when I was interviewing for this. He said, there's such a need to feel in control, a very human need to feel in control and take these actions on your own. And what he's talking about is, I'm making up an example, but that plant operator who has been dialing in set points on the plant for the past 15 years, and they get value out of that and they like doing that. But now we have algorithms and automations and AI that can do that for them, probably better than them. But what we really want those people to understand, or what this piece was a lot about, is if people can appreciate that and accept that, now your position's elevated. You're no longer switching the dials. You're looking at the thing holistically, and you get to make these bigger decisions about what else you can do for your system. So Andrew, James, Rosie, I'm sure you guys have a lot of thoughts about like the adoption or taking the hands off the proverbial steering wheel. I like that. What do you guys think?
Well,
I'll just say real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
We published a piece about this in 2021, and it was all about this piece. Like, this was the major obstacle. And 4 years later, it seems like we're kind of still talking about it, but there are companies like Brainbox growing and getting acquired by Train that seem to have figured out how to get through that obstacle. And so I think it's more like the choice for energy managers out there to say, like, are we going to take that? Other people have taken that jump. Are we going to take that jump? Sorry, Rosie, I interrupted you though.
No, it's okay. I was just noticing that with these last two pieces we're talking about two different roles. We're really just talking about change management. Like, this is what it's coming down to, of like, how are people using their buildings? How are we actually going to implement these technologies that we want to put in place or that we already have in place? How are we using them to the best of our ability? And how are we really getting the people that are supposed to be using them really bought in and excited about it, and like the golden nugget or what Mark was saying? And so I think that is the overarching thing here that I feel like a lot of people are up against. And it's not one solution. There's so many things that need to happen for that to really take effect. But I feel like we need a session all about change management at NexusCon. I vote for that.
Andrew, you guys do this a little bit with enabling supervisory control from the cloud. What you got? Anything to add here?
It's funny though. My favorite story about this is from a buddy of mine in a completely different industry, and I think we've all heard people talk. Old controls guys will talk about like disconnecting a thermostat in an office and like letting people run the wheel as much as they want, and it doesn't do anything because back when DDC was first rolling out, that sort of thing. But this one to me, I don't know, it was so visceral. Like, my buddy was North American quality manager for the world's largest bakery, Bimbo Bakeries, and they were having these bread quality issues. And I mean, they like laser scanned the loaf shape as it goes into the oven. They had image analysis. This was 15 years ago, but this was in the industrial side. You can do all this stuff because it's like one thing. You have this very minimal scope. So like image analysis to make sure the loaves were going in correctly, coming out the right color, all that. So he just keeps having quality issues. So he finally is like, all right, I'm gonna have to like stay in and just watch this happen in second shift, like, or third, whatever it was. And like, these bakers who've been baking bread for 20, 30 years, like, they go to the thermal control where they've got this like precisely set recipe for the oven with the humidity taken into account, like everything possible accounted for in their modeling. And this guy's just going over there every 10 minutes and like up 2 degrees, down 4 degrees, that and so eventually they just disconnected that thermal controller because they would like, you can't do that, man. Like, we're getting inconsistent results. Like, you can't change it. He's like, but this is what we have to do to get it, So, I think there's been this shift happen in industry over and over and over again. And it just takes a while to trust the machinations that we're putting in place. But, I think it comes down to getting more deployments, which is happening now, and people seeing the stuff work. And then I think this will kind of segue into some other topics we may talk about in a minute. As these things mature, like, a lot of the horror stories on specifically AI-driven advanced supervisory control early in this kind of evolution. If you take an unbounded AI system and point it at real equipment and don't provide a lot of like guardrails and boundaries and that sort of stuff, like, stuff will go wrong, and it did. And as the folks building the more novel innovation stuff get more familiar with the actual constraints, which aren't just like, can the machine do this thing? It's like, is it a good idea to do this because it's going to have this effect on your building envelope after 10 years of letting the humidity go to 80% every night? All of that stuff, it gets codified. And this is where I think there's kind of another point we may talk about in a second, where this like idea that these frameworks for codifying this stuff that are loosely, mostly get lumped under this ontology work in this space. It's really about codifying all these constraints for these systems in a way that the machines and the humans can understand them, and that you can give a machine the flexibility to find the optimal solution while remaining confident that it's not going to color outside the lines somewhere and really mess up your building or your systems.
All right.
That's good advice.
Next. Okay. That's it for our categories. Let's end with carve-outs. So carve-outs are anything that you'd like to share from your personal life just to let us get to know you better.
So my carve out for this episode is a book that I recently finished called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And it's an awesome one. If you haven't read it, I bought the actual book, and then I was driving and I was thinking, let me just see if there's an audio version. So I listened to that, and he actually reads it himself, which I think is so much more powerful. Anywho, real quick on what it's about. We all have the zone of genius within us, and then we have our zone of genius and our zone of excellence, and it's basically like, how do you tap into that next level of your superpower as a person? And it was great, so highly recommend. Who's next?
Love
Brad,
it.
you're it.
I did something cool this weekend that I didn't tell you guys about. So in July, I'm going on a llama assisted backpacking trip where these llamas can carry like 80 pounds of stuff for us. So we don't have to carry, or they can carry more than we were going to carry. So we're not bringing a guide. So this last weekend, I went and got my llama license to be able to take these llamas. So I went to the ranch, my wife and I, and we met our 3 llamas that we're taking. We're taking Spock, Hyde, and Drama the llama. Figured out how to put their packs on, figured out how to feed them, how to tie them up,
So
all those
cool.
things. So I'm llama certified now.
You're llama certified.
That's so much
awesome.
better
Brad,
than
you
forklift
win.
certified.
You win. Yeah, you win.
Yeah,
I don't
you
have
win.
anything better
Like
than that.
what?
All right.
Oh man.
I'll go. Before we we force Andrew to go. We've just been buying Andrew time here. I'm gonna get 2. So one is the Champions League still going on. All my soccer fans out there. By the time this comes out, we'll know. But tomorrow, Arsenal plays PSG, and of course, we're all rooting for Arsenal.
Of course.
The second one I have is I'm signed up for in Boulder here. This is a very Boulder thing, you guys, but I'm signed up for this conference called the Conscious Entrepreneurship Conference. And I'm super excited about it. It's about not like losing your mind as an entrepreneur, and I think during this time I really need it. Specifically, there's a 1-day workshop with the author of a book called 10x is easier than 2x, and this is a book that I've read before and I'm extremely skeptical about, and so I'm excited to like be in the room
Nice.
and be a skeptic for once. Normally I'm like all in on these things. I'm like, yeah, of course. But this time I'm like, I don't know if I agree with this guy. So I'm rereading the book and sort of going to spend time with him. We'll see. It'll be fun. I'll report back. All right, Andrew, yours.
Well, there's so many ways to take this. I think one thing that maybe y'all are encouraging me to talk about is smart buildings related. So I don't know that it counts as a carve out. So
That's fair.
All right. Well, we'll just put it in the show notes. You wrote an article that is satirical around AI replacing consultants in our industry, and we'll link to it, and so you could just skip it. So what's your personal one?
The personal one is that in like intense vulnerability, like some of you may have known, I think I may have talked about it at NexusCon with people, but like I had planned on doing this like 1-year trip that was going to be this long road trip. And maybe I had wrapped a little too much of my identity in like doing this thing, and the universe is like, no. So the last four-ish months, I've been like kind of bouncing around a little bit because my plan did not work out. My plan involved a van. The van involved an engine. The engine involved being dead. And then the second engine involved being dead. So we're like in this space right now. Where I'm at right now is the like, what do you do about the third engine? But it's resulted in me like being in Austin, Texas for 3 months and
visiting Brad,
maybe being
right?
in visit. Yeah. Like I showed up on Brad's doorstep with a dead van in the middle of, Colorado, which was, fortunate, very graciously
It was
allowed
fun to
me to
see ya.
use his front yard for a few days. And then I'm kind of planning out but it's been a good season for me because it's like forcing me to figure out, who are you, where you're at, what does that mean? Can you kind of like make it work wherever you're at? And it's been really fun to like, I'd say two things that really kind of big takeaways for me in this season has been like the community that I have in Tennessee and Chattanooga, where I've been for the last 15 years, and like how important that is. And then like when I come, when you go away and you're away for a while, and then you come back to that like that feeling of being wrapped up in a community. And I think that's a big part of what's exciting about Nexus and NexusCon, this community, is that there is that sense of belonging for folks who are trying to make change in the built environment. This is just such a authentic place, and like this, like being a place where people feel comfortable talking about real stuff, real problems, is I think a big part of this community, and why it has so much value for the folks who are a part of it.
Amen to that.
Okay, friends, thank you for listening to this episode. As we continue to grow our global community of changemakers, we need your help. For the next couple of months, we're challenging our listeners to share a link to their favorite Nexus episode on LinkedIn with a short post about why you listen. It would really, really help us out. Make sure to tag us in the post so we can see it. Have a good one.